The old ranch had survived droughts, storms, wildfires, and decades of heartbreak, but nothing could have prepared Owen Mercer for the moment a young woman looked into his tired eyes and quietly changed everything he believed about himself. He had spent years convincing himself that his best days were buried beneath weathered fence posts and fading memories. He thought love belonged to younger people with brighter futures, not to a 63-year-old rancher whose hands carried more scars than dreams. Yet one warm spring morning, beneath a clear blue sky stretching across endless green pastures, Fate arrived riding a gentle chestnut horse, carrying a smile that would challenge every wall he had built around his lonely heart. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness too if you believe that kindness and second chances can change a person's life forever. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need hope the most. For nearly 40 years, Owen had awakened before sunrise to care for Cedar Creek Ranch, the only home he had ever truly known. The ranch rested in a peaceful valley surrounded by rolling green hills, blooming wildflowers, and crystal-clear streams reflecting the bright daylight sky. Every fence he repaired, every tree he planted, and every horse he rescued carried a memory. His wife had passed away more than 15 years earlier after a long illness, and their only son had moved across the country to build a different life. Phone calls became rare. Holidays grew quieter. The ranch echoed with silence broken only by birds singing and cattle wandering through open fields beneath the afternoon sun. The neighboring ranchers respected Owen deeply. They admired his honesty and tireless work ethic, but they also watched him slowly disappear into loneliness. Invitations to community gatherings became fewer because Owen politely declined almost every one. He believed happiness belonged to other families now. His world had become a routine of feeding livestock, repairing old barns, and watching sunsets alone from the wooden porch. Deep inside, he had accepted that love had already visited his life once and would never return. Several miles away lived Maren Holloway, a 34-year-old wildlife photographer whose career had taken her across mountains, forests, and distant countries. She had captured breathtaking images of nature, yet no photograph ever filled the emptiness she carried inside. After losing both parents within 2 years, she realized success meant little without genuine human connection. Seeking peace rather than applause, she accepted an assignment documenting the disappearing heritage ranches scattered across the countryside. The first time Maren arrived at Cedar Creek Ranch, the bright morning air carried the scent of fresh grass after a gentle overnight rain. Sunlight illuminated the weathered red barn, grazing horses, and fields dotted with colorful wildflowers. Owen noticed the unfamiliar visitor stepping carefully through the ranch gate with a camera hanging around her neck and genuine curiosity shining in her eyes. Unlike many reporters who rushed through interviews, Maren moved slowly, asking thoughtful questions about every horse, every fence, and every story hidden within the land. Over the following weeks, she returned often. She photographed rescued animals finding new strength, aging oak trees that had witnessed generations of ranchers, and Owen gently caring for an injured foal with remarkable patience. She discovered that the quiet man rarely spoke about himself, but every animal seemed to trust him completely. His kindness appeared effortless, almost invisible, woven naturally into every task he performed. As spring deepened, their conversations grew longer. They shared simple lunches beneath the shade of enormous cottonwood trees while birds fluttered overhead beneath brilliant blue skies. Owen explained how every season carried its own lessons. Maren described the distant places she had traveled and confessed that none of them ever truly felt like home. Together they laughed more than either expected. Even neighboring ranchers noticed that Owen smiled again. Still, Owen refused to let hope grow inside him. Whenever he caught himself looking forward to Maren's visits, he reminded himself of the obvious difference between them. She was energetic, adventurous, and still had decades ahead. He saw only wrinkles reflected in old mirrors, aching knees after long workdays, and gray hair hidden beneath his worn ranch hat. Rumors spread through the small community. Some smiled kindly, while others whispered that such a friendship could never become anything more. Owen heard every comment, allowing each careless opinion to reinforce his deepest insecurity. One bright afternoon, after finishing repairs on an old wooden bridge crossing the creek, Owen finally gathered the courage to speak honestly. They stood beside the water where sunlight danced across gentle ripples. Wildflowers swayed softly in the warm breeze. Birds sang from nearby branches. Owen looked away before quietly telling Maren that she deserved someone closer to her own age. He admitted that he was simply too old, too ordinary, and too far into life's journey for someone like her. For several long seconds, only the flowing creek filled the silence. Then Maren stepped closer with calm certainty resting upon her face. She gently reached for his weathered hand, looked directly into his uncertain eyes, and whispered the words that would echo through his heart forever. "To me, you're perfect." Those 4 words shattered years of loneliness more completely than any storm could have broken an old fence. Owen could not answer immediately. Tears gathered despite every effort to hide them. Nobody had looked beyond his age for so very long. Nobody had reminded him that kindness, integrity, patience, and compassion never grow old. For the first time since losing his wife, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps life had not finished writing his story. The weeks that followed were not easy. Some neighbors celebrated their growing relationship, while others judged without understanding. Hurtful comments reached Owen through conversations at feed stores and local markets. He considered stepping away, believing Maren deserved freedom from criticism. But Maren never wavered. Instead of hiding, she became even more involved with ranch life. Together they organized community volunteer days restoring neglected fences for elderly farmers. Local teenagers learned valuable ranch skills while retired workers shared decades of knowledge. Families who had barely spoken for years began working side by side beneath clear daylight skies, rediscovering friendship through shared purpose. The ranch slowly transformed into something larger than property. It became a gathering place where lonely people found belonging. Travelers stopped to admire rescued horses grazing peacefully. Schoolchildren visited to learn about caring for animals with patience instead of fear. Volunteers planted hundreds of native trees whose shade would protect future generations. As summer arrived, Cedar Creek Ranch flourished like never before. Bright green pastures stretched toward distant hills under endless blue skies. Healthy horses galloped freely across open fields. Laughter echoed through the barns where silence had once ruled. One afternoon, Owen received unexpected news. His estranged son, Garrett, planned to visit after several years away. Anxiety immediately filled Owen's heart. He feared judgment not only about the ranch but also about Maren. When Garrett finally arrived with his young daughter, little Eliza, he carried uncertainty in every step. Yet children often notice truth faster than adults. Within minutes, Eliza was laughing beside Maren while feeding rescued goats and brushing gentle horses. She saw happiness surrounding her grandfather before anyone else recognized it. Garrett quietly observed throughout the day. He noticed the volunteers greeting Owen warmly. He watched neighbors thanking Maren for inspiring community projects. Most importantly, he saw something he had not witnessed in years. His father laughed. Not the polite smile offered to strangers, but genuine laughter rising from deep within a healed heart. Later that afternoon, Garrett apologized for allowing distance to grow between them. He admitted believing his father no longer needed anyone. Seeing the ranch alive again revealed how wrong he had been. Father and son embraced beneath the shade of an old oak tree while Maren and Eliza watched nearby with grateful smiles. Years of regret dissolved beneath simple forgiveness. Autumn painted the valley with brilliant colors, but the warmth surrounding Cedar Creek Ranch never faded. Visitors came not because it was the largest ranch or the richest, but because it reminded them that compassion could still thrive in an often hurried world. Months later, during the annual harvest celebration held beneath clear daytime skies, Owen stood before friends, neighbors, volunteers, and family members. The same community that had once whispered doubts now gathered to celebrate hope. Without elaborate speeches or expensive decorations, Owen simply thanked everyone for believing that broken hearts could heal. He turned toward Marin, whose gentle smile had become the brightest part of every morning. Age had never disappeared. The years remained visible upon his face, but shame no longer accompanied them. They represented perseverance, sacrifice, and wisdom rather than limitations. Just before the celebration ended, everyone applauded as Owen and Marin danced slowly across the open grass while children laughed nearby and horses grazed peacefully beyond the white fences. The valley seemed brighter because two lonely souls had refused to let fear decide their future. Before this story comes to its close, we have one heartfelt request. Please comment, "Kindness has no age," if you believe love is measured by character, not by years. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness too. Your support encourages more stories that remind the world compassion, hope, and second chances are always worth believing in. As the afternoon sun shined gently across Cedar Creek Ranch, Owen realized that the greatest miracle had never been finding someone who ignored his age. The true miracle was meeting someone who saw the goodness he had forgotten existed within himself. Sometimes the world teaches us to count birthdays, wrinkles, and gray hair. But the heart counts something entirely different. It remembers kindness offered without expecting reward, quiet loyalty through difficult seasons, gentle hands willing to help strangers, and courage strong enough to love again after unimaginable loss. And perhaps that is why, on one ordinary day beneath a bright blue sky, when Owen believed he was far too old for another chance, a simple whisper became the beginning of the happiest chapter of his life, proving that the heart never grows old when it is finally seen, accepted, and loved exactly as it is.